Snipers, you have to see what's happening to the Bitcoin price this Saturday as we have a bullish daily continuation candle from yesterday that took us above the previous weekly open in all daily moving averages, with our resistance at 49,700 and our support now at 47,240 from our previous weekly open. This is an extremely important move for Bitcoin to assume whether or not we're going to be able to break this local high here at 48,800, because if we are able to move above this level, now we can test 49,700 and potentially get ourselves back above 50,000 US dollars. But until we start to see some real volume come in, remember the path of least resistance is always going to be sideways to a little bit higher. And so we want to start looking at the smaller time frames. But since we are above the 50-day, 100-day, and 200-day moving average and the monthly and weekly open, this is an extremely important move that we need to start dissecting to talk about whether or not we're starting to see institutional participation in the market. When we go inside of the 6-hour chart, notice how we've yet to see the buy volume equate to the amount of sell pressure that we saw on the 6th of September that took us below 50,000 US dollars, and we saw a 19% drop. We saw a lot of sell pressure here. We've yet to really see that type of buy volume, but we are starting to see the ground fertile with buyers here, with retail traders buying this range here between 41,950 and 49,700. We finally saw a little bit of some buy pressure yesterday, which allowed Bitcoin to get above this previous weekly open. And now that we're starting to head towards 49,700, that is going to be the major resistance that we need to monitor for Bitcoin. It is the weekend, so we have to take everything with a grain of salt. And at this point, we've failed to form any highs above our local highs here. And so this is currently a puzzle piece, but we're already here. And so that tells me that the likelihood of us being able to test 49,700 is certainly on the table. So the main thing to realize is we've yet to see real volume, and there's not many hints that we are getting that institutions are necessarily participating with all of their capital, I guess you can say. We're just starting to see retail participation and some slight institutional participation, allowing the price to come to these higher price levels. But what we really want to monitor coming in to the next 24 to 48 hours is how is this previous weekly open at 47,240 going to hold as a support level? Because if this level breaks, 44,800 comes back on the table. But up until that point, 49,700 is the next destination for Bitcoin, knowing the fact that we now can act as a support level here at 47,240. And so that's really what I'm monitoring here. I think that Bitcoin is in a tight range. In the past, we've seen Bitcoin flirt above 47,240, and it's actually seen some downside, but we've also seen Bitcoin flirt at this level and see some upside. And so I think that it could really go both ways. It's really a 50-50 at this point, and we really want to monitor this range at 47,240 and 49,700. We know that we've yet to see some real volume, and so I think that's the biggest thing to keep in mind here. And with this move to the upside, we're also starting to see Bitcoin dominance increase, which is in line with our thesis that we are in the early stages of a reversal for Bitcoin dominance. Now, I do want to address the weekly chart just because we have these two major moving averages, the 20-week and 50-week, showing confluence in between 38,000 and 41,950. So far, we've come and tested the 20-week twice, and we've held the 20-week moving average. And so that's a very positive thing. When you're above the 20-week moving average, you're in a bullish trend. Now, what we really want to see in a more macro point of view is for Bitcoin to cross above the high here of 52,920 to assume a more macro bullish breakout. I think if we can get above this $52,920 level, the likelihood of Bitcoin potentially coming to test its previous all-time high, or maybe even seeing new all-time high, becomes a lot likely. That's a more macro perspective if we're able to get to that point. But remember, 49,700, of course, is going to be the major level to watch first as a roadblock before we can see that type of price action. And of course, it's the weekend, so everything is manipulated on the weekend due to CME futures being closed. We have to take things with a grain of salt. But with this move to the upside, the Ethereum to Bitcoin chart is not necessarily performing in an extravagant way, causing the Ethereum to US dollar price to also kind of stop at this previous weekly open at 33.28. And so I think that if Bitcoin can get above 49,700, the likelihood of Ethereum getting above 3454 becomes highly likely. And remember, we do have this market structural resistance as well that is possibly going to act as a roadblock here for Ethereum. But I don't know if we're going to see Ethereum outperform Bitcoin. And I think that that's a huge puzzle piece for the rest of the altcoin market. The total cryptocurrency market cap chart, this is pretty important because we came up and formed a lower high so far. And now you can see we bounced at the 200-day moving average, retesting this previous weekly open as well. Bitcoin, Ethereum, and the total market cap pretty much at the previous weekly open. That's the major area we want to watch right now, because if we're not able to see some continued strength from these levels, then that could open up some more downside targets. And so with the total cryptocurrency market cap chart, if we can get above 2.259 trillion, that assumes Bitcoin gets above 49,700. Now we can start changing the storyline and talk about some potentially new all-time highs here for the total market. And Bitcoin dominance is certainly starting to make some noise here, testing this 50-day moving average for the first time in quite a while. The last time we were here was in August. That was following the period that we saw Bitcoin top out in May. We got above the 50-day moving average. Remember, Bitcoin dominance will tend to move up when there's fear in the market. And so now that we're back at this 50-day moving average, we really want to monitor this area. If we can get above this 50-day moving average, the likelihood that we can get above the 20-week moving average, I think, becomes highly probable, and that's currently sitting at 45% dominance, and that would be a huge deal if we can get above the 20-week moving average, because we have not gotten above this level since the start of this altcoin season, from the start of this year. So we've only rejected this level. The DXY, of course, has already gotten above the 20-week moving average. We're not going to look at that because it's Saturday. Those traditional markets are closed, but it looks like our thesis with altcoins are still intact. Now, we look at the altcoins outside of Bitcoin and Ethereum. We're actually sitting at this 50-day moving average. We've yet to form new highs as well. This is also going to be a very important piece to the puzzle after we see Bitcoin make its move either above 49,700 or below the $47,240 level where we have the previous weekly open. We want to see, is this chart going to see some downside or upside, of course, because if this starts to move down, that assumes that the altcoins outside of Bitcoin and Ethereum are not going to be performing as much. Of course, there's always those isolated cases. I know Axie Infinity has been pumping recently. There's a lot of use case for that platform in the Philippines. And so fundamentally sound projects tend to always do well, but Ethereum dominance is actually performing worse than other altcoins. It's actually below its 50-day moving average. And so that is a leading indicator for other altcoins as well. Just some food for thought. So very interesting time. I think it's very nice to see Bitcoin back towards 49,700. That's a very positive thing. Even if we see downside, we're at least buying ourselves some opportunities to see a lower a lower intensity of movement to the downside, since we are able to move sideways in this range. If we do see some downside pressure, now we have a lot of roadblocks to the downside that could hold Bitcoin's price for a longer time. And so I think that that's a very positive thing. But just remember, the DXY did close above a major resistance that it hasn't closed above in quite a while. And so coming into the weekend, this is a major puzzle piece, along with the S&P 500 closing below this 100-day moving average. I actually closed at the 100-day moving average, but the body of the candle is pretty much completely below the 100-day moving average. And that's the first time we've seen this happen for the S&P 500 in, certainly over a year, but quite a while that we've seen any closes below this 100-day moving average. The last time we saw that was actually October of 2020. And so it's going to be interesting to see how traditional markets open up. We'll definitely cover that, as we always do here on the Snipers channel. But just know the puzzle pieces aren't the best for Bitcoin's upside prediction. The puzzle pieces for the traditional markets just don't look good, which is why I think we have to take this with a grain of salt. But remember, as I mentioned, I think the biggest thing we have to realize is between 47,240 and 49,700, Bitcoin has been here before. And when it's been here before, we've seen Bitcoin move above 49,700. We've also seen Bitcoin move below 40,000 from this range. And so this is two different scenarios that could play out. We're back at this area. it's really a 50-50 at this point. So thank you all for tuning into the Snipers channel this Saturday. I hope you enjoyed today's analysis. Remember to smash the like button for the YouTube algorithm. And until next time, Snipers